Hello and welcome to Financial Perspectives, a CFA Society San Francisco podcast where we interview and discuss trends with leaders from across the investment and finance industry. This month, our host Tanya Suba Tang, Membership Director with CFA Society San Francisco, had the pleasure of speaking with Jaycob Arbogast, Director of the Center for Excellence in Finance at California State University, Chico. Listen in as they discuss the transition from classroom to career and what it takes to succeed in finance today. So before I introduce this podcast episode's guest speaker, I wanted to share a little background with our listeners that would hopefully give them insight to why this episode is special and a little different from past episodes we've done. So as many listeners know, CFA Society San Francisco is one of the largest CFA societies globally, and we are very proud to be the premier association for finance professionals in the Bay Area. We are very proud of bringing programming events that bring forth industry titans and thought leaders. What many might not be aware is the society's actual passion is to support the younger members of our community. And this is specifically for college and university students pursuing a career in the finance and investment industry. So for years now, we've been creating, developing programs and creating our volunteer-led council who are actually made of faculty from various Northern California universities and colleges. And this program is specifically targeted to support our students. And I'm very excited and very proud to say that this past weekend, we launched our first annual student career conference that brought over 16 universities together from Northern California. And they were able to listen from many leading industry members who shared their insights, their backgrounds, their professional career journeys, which we felt is such an intricate and important part in helping shape careers for those coming into the industry. So today, I'm very excited to welcome Jaycob Arbogast, Director for the Center of Excellence in Finance at California State University, Chico. Hi, Jaycob. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Tanya.
I'm so happy to have you on our podcast today. Not only are you a member of our newly minted University Relations Council, but you and your students actually attended our student career conference this past weekend.
That's right. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And another great thing is that you actually moderated one of the most popular panels that we had, which we brought in 4 of our industry leaders to talk to your students about finding career paths. And so I think you're the best person to kind of really dig a little bit deeper and maybe share what you discovered, because some of our listeners might be thinking, a career change into finance and investment industry, and even students who are listening to this podcast right now.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it was a really enjoyable time. I had a great time at the event overall, and then even with specifically the panel that I was on was a lot of fun. So I learned a lot and got to hear some really good insights from the professionals.
So I want to get your take as a professor. You've been doing this for quite some time. What challenges do students face as they transition from academia and then getting into the workforce?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I would probably break that into 2 pieces. One piece being kind of the economic landscape for students as they come out of college, especially, today with kind of how jobs are looking, how careers are shaping up. But then the other piece, I think, is kind of the skill sets that students have, and maybe in some cases the gap there that they need to learn about. So that first piece, the econ part, your listeners probably know, if they're listening to a CFA podcast, they're probably familiar with the economy and how the jobs numbers and interest rates look, but we all kind of keep a little bit of tabs on how that goes. So today's economy for students coming out into the workforce, especially in a finance career or a technically focused career, it's hard. It's tough to, kind of break in. So you see, job postings online on any of those platforms, and if it's got a button where you can apply online, there's probably 1,000 applicants in the few minutes that it's been posted. And so that's tough to compete with. And so students are dealing with that. And historically, I don't think there was that same level of competition, but there's always been some competition. So just the fact that there is, competition for new jobs is not new, but the way that it is kind of in the economic landscape is new. So the other piece I think that students have to deal with is kind of the skill set of, you've done a few things in college, maybe you had 4 years, maybe five in some cases as you're going through and learning some things, but you haven't maybe put that your education into a real world experience yet. And so I think if students have an opportunity to get real world experience, whether that's something like the IRC competition that the CFA Society puts on, the investment research competition, or any other way that students can get some real world experience to add on their resume, I think that's a great way that students get going. But the big challenge there is going to be where if your resume says 4.0 finance degree, that's excellent, but you need something else on there, right? Maybe an internship or
Mhm.
maybe something else. So those are, I think, what the students are seeing as a big challenge.
So, as I mentioned earlier, you had moderated this fantastic panel at our student career fair. And, our panelists for that, they were very diverse group. They were very, very diverse in their career, their professional journey, their personal backgrounds. What were the key skills and resources did they share that you believe will be valuable for students or even individuals looking to get into finance and an investment industry, like a career transition, and even those in their early careers?
Yeah, and I'm going to counter myself a little bit here by saying that one of the things that we heard on this panel was that it's not just the technical skills. So I just said that students see a challenge of coming out of the out of college into a workforce, and they need some real world experience, but they also need to be likable and to be personable, right? And
Mhm.
so there's maybe this stereotype around finance that everybody is a spreadsheet person and we just want to look at numbers all day and do percentages in our head and whatever else. But there's also a piece to finance as an industry that is a person to person kind of thing, right? Whether it's a sales component or whether it's an advisory component or some other thing, it's a lot of person to person contact. And so students coming into the workforce, if you're applying for a job, the person on the other side of the table is thinking, do I want to spend 8 hours a day every day with this person? I don't know, right? And if
Mhm.
you have a little bit of a good personality and you're kind of fun to be around, then that is a point in your favor. And sometimes it's a little bit of the, I guess maybe the table stakes is that you got to be able to have a little bit of number sense, but it's also, can you get the job done, and am I going to be interested in working with you? So one of the great things that I think we took away from this panel, and we had a great slate of speakers there, and it was super interesting to hear from them. But I think it was really interesting to hear that the kind of personable piece of finance is what they recommended is something to consider as you're going into this industry.
And, they shared so many great insights and so many great feedback, sharing their own journeys, like I mentioned earlier. But what were some things that they responded to that really surprised you, and that you maybe you didn't expect coming from such a diverse and young panel?
Yeah, so, I think all of it was surprising. So, it was really great. It was really great to hear a different perspective, 'cause, I talk to my students about, what I think they should be working on and what I think they should be focused on, but I'm just one person, and so being able to hear it from someone else and to give the audience a little bit of some background, these were, professionals who were working in kind of higher finance type roles in tech companies and pension funds and kind of a broad background and lots of different experiences. And so it was really cool to hear and kind of surprising to hear that kind of personable piece on there. I thought that was surprising, but also that it's not just your technical skills or your personal skills, or it's kind of the combination of you as a whole package and being able to do this work and kind of who you are as a person. And you think of finance careers as being this, I don't know, brick wall of it's all robots or whatever. It's I'm gonna harp back on the stereotyping thing again, but it is a personality and a personable industry as well. One of the other things I guess that was surprising to me was that one of the panelists said that, you can use AI a little bit, but you
Mhm,
can't rely on it entirely. So, and
mhm.
this is coming from somebody who works for maybe I won't name a company, but somebody who works for a company that has a well-known AI platform. And so if you, and I see this in my students all the time too, if you're relying on one of these language models to write your cover letter and to write your resume for you, and then hope that that's going to get you through. That's not. It's not going to get you a job, because you have to also be able to write eloquently, at least, or at least coherently at minimum. And so you got to be able to do it yourself too. And even when you're in the workforce, you're going to be able to answer emails and talk to your boss. And so you can't rely on AI to answer every question for you. So having a little bit of using AI as a tool and being able to, maybe fine tune something using that kind of digital feedback, I think is great. And that's a tool that I use in the classroom a lot too. Is, one of the things I do in my classes is that students have to present their work. They can't just turn in a paper and have had something else write that paper for them. So at the end of either the semester or the project, whatever it is, we'll have them present. And so that way I can at least make sure they know the material. It's not just some robot telling me the answer for them. So those, I think, were some of the biggest surprises, is that the industry isn't entirely robotic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of share the same thought as you, that whole feedback on AI as well, because everyone's like, oh, they're going to take our jobs, but no, there's still a human component that needs to be part of it. So, and kind of just wrapping things up here, for those in the investment and finance industry who maybe are more senior in the level or mid in the career, who are established, who want to come and support our incoming workforce, what advice or takeaways could you share with them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that I think about a lot in my role. So, just to give a little bit of background, is in my space, I work to help build up our finance program at the university. To bring students to more career opportunities and to bring professionals onto campus. And so, one of the things that maybe is obvious to a financial professional, but maybe not, is the informational interviews and the coffee chats and those kinds of things that you'll get
Mhm.
requests from students. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are used to those kinds of requests, right? They get them on LinkedIn or email or whatever. And so, answering those, certainly, that's absolutely a first step in being supportive to students. But I think another step that maybe is overlooked is that you can come back to campus too, and you can be a guest speaker or a judge in a competition. Maybe what's less publicly known is that a lot of universities, especially throughout California where we are, a lot of universities hold competitions for like a stock pitch competition or a
Mhm.
financial planning competition or lots of different other groups. And so you could come back to campus. You could do a class talk and talk in a course that is related to what your career is. We just had somebody on campus yesterday who works in investor relations, and so he came back to talk to one of our classes about how investor relations relates to all the different institutions within the industry. So I think those ways are excellent ways to get involved and to talk to students and to kind of support entrance into the industry. And I hear what you said in your last comment about AI taking jobs, right? And kind of a fear of that. And that there may be some worry about that. And I think that's, what will happen is technology will make people more efficient. And so we may not need as many people in some areas, but we're still going to need people in some area somewhere. And
Mhm.
so we need to have this incoming pipeline in the industry. If you have no new entrants, then everybody is just going to get older and leave, and then there's no one left. And so being able to come back to the university and talk to students and help to kind of onboard new talent into the pipeline, I think is an excellent way to keep the industry going and growing.
I love that. And, thank you so much for kind of sharing your insights and feedback. And for our listeners who might be listening and saying, yeah, I want to help support, feel free to please email us here at the University Relations at cfa-sf.org. And we definitely would love to connect you with one of our universities and definitely help these students. I think there's a lot to learn from this ever changing industry. It's one of the most exciting. There's always something happening. And I know a lot of these students are craving that information. So thank you, Jacob, for joining me today and sharing your insights and what we learned at our Student Career Conference.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you to this month's guest, Jaycob Arbogast, for your insights into breaking into finance careers. Join us next time for another Financial Perspectives episode airing on the last Tuesday of the month. Make sure to send in a message to the show by emailing podcast@cfa-sf.org. We'd love to hear what you thought of this episode or any suggestions on future topics you'd like for us to cover. Thank you for being a dedicated listener. This podcast is produced by CFA Society San Francisco, a not-for-profit professional association
providing professional learning and career resources to over 13,000 investment industry professionals worldwide. To learn more about CFA Society San Francisco, visit our website at cfa-sf.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.